Ever wondered why the same perfume comes in a cologne, a toilette, or parfum version, even an extrait? Is it all about strength or is there something more to it? Hi, Internet. My name is Kamachelo Bichadi, and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be diving into the fascinating world of perfume concentrations, from the fresh waters of Eau de Cologne to the luxurious depth of Extrait de Parfum. This is not a historical video, it's not. But I did read some historical articles and I kind of picked out things that stood out to me and my non-historical brain. So firstly, the word perfume comes from the Latin phrase perfumen or fumen, which basically means through smoke. And this points to the ancient rituals of people burning resins, burning woods and florals to release the fragrant scent into the air. So now this was mostly done in religious ritual, paying homage to the gods and stuff like that. But from that phrase, the word evolved into the French word parfum, which I'm butchering, of course, expected, and then later on evolved into the English word perfume. So as I mentioned, originally perfumes were used in rituals for religious purposes. They were used for embalming. They were also used for medicinal purposes, right? So the original perfumes were oil-based, and the raw ingredients or the raw materials that were used came from nature. So literally from flowers and woods and all of these things. So these things were potent. Even after the introduction of alcohol into perfumery, because the raw materials were still from nature, the perfumes were still very potent. Yeah, and another thing, because of the process of getting oils for the perfumes tended to be very pricey and were basically a sign of luxury, right? So only the wealthy people could afford to use perfumes. I read that, there was a period of history where people were skeptical about bathing, so they stopped bathing. Probably not everyone. Basically, the wealthy, I guess, or the people that could afford would then use these perfumes to sort of mask their body odor. So yeah, perfumes back then were very floral and musky and animalic, and as I mentioned already, very potent. So that's what they would use to sort of mask the fact that they were not bathing. Back where I come from, we have a phrase or a saying that "motho o tlhapile ka perfume." Basically, it means like you doused yourself in perfume. That's how we use it. You just basically poured the whole bottle on you. The whole bottle on you. And I guess some of the times you wonder, did you actually bath with? Cool, so let me go through the concentrations that were formalized, if I can put it that way, by the modern perfume industry. So from what I understand, the modern perfume industry, they put down these concentrations as a way to sort of standardize formulations, perfume formulations, but also to market, because now they can put on their bottles the concentration that the perfume is, and it sort of communicates a value of the perfume, the value and the potency of the perfume. I've heard multiple times that don't buy an EDT, go for an EDP, it lasts longer. So just that phrasing on the bottle communicates something about the juice within the bottle. Firstly, when we talk about perfume concentrations, we're talking about the percentage of oil in your perfume. So our perfumes are mostly made up of alcohol, oils, and in a lot of cases some water. So the percentage of the actual fragrant oil is what we would then refer to as the concentration, and different ranges are classified in a different way, which is what I'm going to get into. So I'm going to go through it, trying to sort of go through the chronological order of history as best as I discovered it. So if I am mistaken, please forgive me. But firstly, we have the parfum, or I literally googled how to pronounce it because it's so sexy. I'm gonna try. I have a very stubborn tongue, but I'm gonna try. Extrait de Parfum is the pure perfume, or the highest concentration. Technically, it's not pure perfume oil because the perfume oils need to be diluted. In this case, alcohol, so that it limits sensitivity or reactions to the skin. The Extrait de Parfum, or the pure perfume extract is what was used in the beginning. So hence their perfumes are very strong and they lasted long because they had a lot of oil. So the extract normally will have all these strong ingredients that, you know, will give it its longevity. I mean, you can't get an extract that is not gonna perform well. What's the point? It is also the most expensive still because it has the most amount of fragrance oil and therefore raw materials. It still costs the most from all the concentrations. So typically the extract will be between 20 to 40% of fragrance oil. So this is what is commonly published out there. I do have to say that of the percentages of the different concentrations do differ a little bit depending on the source that you're reading from. Next up, we have the Eau de Cologne, which basically means water from Cologne. Cologne, the town in Germany. So the first cologne was made to be a bit fresher and a bit lighter than the extract. So it was very citrusy and very aromatic. So obviously this cologne was a deviation from the perfume that was used in that day. And also because of the cheaper raw material and the lower concentrations of oil in the actual perfume, it was more affordable and could be not marketed, but it could be accessible by the middle class. Then over time, cologne became synonymous with male fragrances. I think it's still used in that way. For some reason, guys don't want to say perfume. Also, cologne is synonymous with freshness and citrusy type of scent profiles. So sometimes brands will market their perfumes as colognes, even though they are not within the range of the Eau de Cologne in terms of their perfume oil concentration. But they market it that way to sort of show or tell the market that this perfume is fresh, it's light, it's citrusy, or it's geared to the men. Eau de Cologne would typically be between 2 to 5% of fragrance oil. And then we have the Eau de Toilette, which is basically water of the toilet or grooming water. It's a very funny name, but essentially at some point people started bathing again, I guess because all the the misconceptions around bathing were sort of handled or dealt with, and there was also a germ centric or germ teachings, I guess, around the time. So people started actually taking their hygiene back into their hands and being serious about bathing. So then there was a need or a desire for something that was between the Eau de Cologne and the Extrait de Parfum that could be used, but you know, it's not the heaviness and the potency of the extract, and it's not the simple citrus of the Eau de Cologne. So they wanted something in between. At the same time, synthetic materials started being used, so perfumers could play around with scents that did not fall into those two camps. So that's how the Eau de Toilette was born, and it's typically around 5 to 15% of fragrance oil. For shame, I was spinning such a fantastic story that I didn't want to interrupt myself, but I did actually go back just to verify because that story was sounding a bit too fantastical. So I realized that actually the EDT origins are a bit more nuanced than that. I think because there isn't a specific perfume or a specific title EDT that was given, like with the Eau de Cologne, there's a specific one that we can trace it back to. It's a bit, it confused me a little. But some of the sources, or a lot of the sources, trace it back to the Hungry Water, which was I think the first alcohol-based perfume that was made for the Queen of Hungary. So it was like some rosemary-infused type perfume. I understand that a couple of variations followed after that. But back then, these things were, I think, a lot of them were medicinal. They were like sort of skin restorative tonics. So yeah, I think the sort of refreshing type perfumes that were used. So not necessarily about the bathing stuff. And then it came way before the Eau de Cologne, so it was the precursor to the Eau de Cologne. The Eau de Cologne, I think, was in early 1700s. That's when they did this citrus stuff. And then the aroma chemicals, so those different different scent isolates that were created, only came later on. So the timelines were a bit skewed there in my retelling, but yeah, there was a bit of germ history and hygiene history that was also intertwined into the perfume history, but I would be telling lies if I said the EDT originated from that specifically. So I just needed to correct myself a little bit there. Yeah, let me go back then. And then we have the Eau de Parfum, which is our favorite, most popular one. It's more modern or more recent compared to the other concentrations, and it basically means fragranced water or perfume water. The EDP is more of a 20th century concentration. It's stronger than the EDT, but less potent and less strong than the extract. So as the fragrance community or industry was growing and was becoming a bit more sophisticated, people wanted something that was longer lasting than the EDT, but wasn't as heavy and oily as the extract. So that's where the EDP came into play. If you think back a couple of years, they were the premium product. They were the thing. So no one wants to use an EDT because you walk out of the house and it's gone. So we were all running towards the EDP. This whole rise in EDP's popularity also coincided with a lot of perfume brands coming up. Some of these guys are actually quite old, 1800s type thing. Like, I did not realize how old some of these brands are. It's actually quite incredible. The EDP is between 15% to 20% fragrance oil, and as I mentioned, it's the most popular. I think it's still the most popular today because it is sort of still affordable, you know. If you want to splurge a little bit, then you look for the extract. And then lastly, we have the Eau Fraîche. I am butchering that. I listened to a video and I still can't remember, but basically it means fresh water. So now this is the lightest of the concentrations and probably the least spoken of. So it's around like body mist type concentration, between 1 to 3% fragrance oil. So literally light. So this is like, if you are not into heavy scents or you just want something to quickly freshen yourself up, I'm not going anywhere for long, so I just want to smell kind of something other than my skin scent. So I actually try to look for perfumes that are in this concentration, and I'm struggling to find some, right? So a lot of the brands will have Eau Fraîche on their bottles, but it's actually an EDT. I think I saw Chanel Chance is one of them, and there's a Versace one. It has the Eau Fraîche on the bottle, but it's actually an EDP. So I don't actually know if, outside of like body mists, I don't know if they are actual like bottled perfumes, pretty fancy designer perfumes that have that little oil in them. But essentially, I get same as with the cologne, brands will use that name just to indicate the lightness and the freshness of their perfume. Those are the concentrations that I wanted to touch on. The percentages are guidelines, so it's not like a strict and hard-coded rule, but they are strong for like branding and marketing. So brands will usually try to stick within those ranges, right? A common thing that you will find is a brand releasing the same perfume across concentrations. I've seen a couple of examples of this. I think Chanel No. 5 is one, Dior J'adore is one. But essentially the point of this is to have people experience that scent across different concentrations, right? So you can decide if you wanted a little bit lighter or a little bit heavier, somewhere in the middle, and then you choose a concentration that you want, or you go for all of them. Because a lot of the time it's not as simplistic as taking the same fragrance formulation and just reducing the percentage that you are using in your perfume. I think what I've seen a lot of the time is they actually tweak the formula a little bit across the concentrations, right? So, you know, the EDT and the EDP will have slight differences, but the EDT will be truer to that freshness, lightness. And then the extract will be a bit stronger and will have additional ingredients that sort of lend to that potency and that depth of an extract. You could literally have all the concentrations of the same perfume, but they would slightly, you know, differ in how they smell, and you could use them in different occasions. I don't think I'm there yet. Maybe once I have like a big collection, I will do the whole thing of buying one perfume in EDT, EDP, and extract version, but right now I'm trying to just cover a lot of ground. Anyway, that is basically it on fragrance or perfume concentrations. That's all I wanted to cover. Yeah, let me know what is your preferred concentration, and if you have any more tidbits, any more historical nuggets that you would like to add, even if they're not historical, just anything around the topic, please do add it to the comments. I'd like to hear about it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.